And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We made it to 2024. It's almost like I haven't seen you guys in a whole year. Welcome to today's video, where I hope it's gonna be a good one. This is a video I've been pushing off for a long time, but I figure it's a good way of starting 2024, and ultimately I'm putting the decision in your hands. Do we continue doing the historic all characters ranked in Star Wars Galaxy Heroes from best to worst? Come on over, let me tell you the dilemma that we're having. So we've been doing plenty of things to keep you up to date on the beat of Galaxy of Heroes. What are the best things? All that fun stuff. But the last time I made a character ranking video was 2022 October. By the way, thank you so much for all the likes and views. It's a well-received series, but the problem that I'm having lately, the game more than ever is about team compositions, not so much individual power. So I'm gonna just bring this up this year. This could be the last. If you guys think it's also kind of a dumb thing to do, I'll stop doing it. But if you think there's a reason to keep individual character rankings alive, you guys let me know. So there's gonna be a link down below to our spreadsheet. Now, this spreadsheet, before we get into this spreadsheet is the same one that I used a while ago to update our team rankings. This, in my opinion, is more helpful, is more applicable to what Galaxy Heroes is all about. It's all about team build. You're not going in of individual characters for the most part. There's a couple of one that can excel in a solo format, but here, you know, we go over the territory war power, we go over the grand arena power, giving them individualized scores, ranking all the teams and from best to worst. So this is what I feel like is more helpful, and I'm still gonna keep doing this. I feel like we're still a little too early to do another one. There's only been like Keller and Beck and like Dark Trooper Gideon Bo-Katan, so not really need to update this yet, but once we start rolling in 2024, we're probably gonna see a lot more teams come to fruition, and we're gonna need to start slapping on here. But let's get into the character ranking side of things. So I created a spreadsheet version of the character side because I always had the common complaint I can't find X, Y, or Z characters. This is a lot easier to search, and if you guys like this is the character ranking series, I'll add like the character images next, so you get at least the face of the character, so we can pimp it out a little bit. But again, I don't know if in 2024 does this really have any applicable matter. Maybe it's a good starting point for when new players come to like, oh wow, I got Count Dooku, how good is he? They can kind of go in here and get a good starting point on how that character is overall. So let's kind of go through it and explain how we're still going about it to this day if we are going to do character ranking. So generally when we do all characters ranked, what we're looking for is the individual power, their plug and play viability, and of course we add modifiers so we can increase their power from a base level. So let's go back this up real quick. Let's start here. So the number one thing, this has always been continuing through even when we did our character rankings back in 2022, we have these little +1, +2, +3, indicating how much better a particular character can get when in the right situation. In an Omicron, they get a little bit better. In a specific team composition, they might get a little bit better. So we're still bringing that over so you know how much better a character can get moving forward. So obviously Galactic Legends, not much to talk about there. The top of the top, baby. It doesn't get much better than that, but why don't we go investigate some of the Grandmasters that we have here. So I want to probably put a little asterisk here. Bo-Katan, Mandalore bringing to the list. We are just about to get into a 5v5 Grand Arena season. Hopefully you get the memo, sign up for Grand Arena. So we're really going to see how Bo-Katan's going to be fitting in the Galaxy of Heroes picture. Right now, really hard to tell. But here, I feel like this is kind of, Grandmaster characters are kind of easier to pick out than some of the other ones. You know, for example, Darth Malak, amazing standalone viability. Commander Ahsoka Tano has a lot of plug-and-play viability out there. Dr. Aphra, things like General Skywalker, Jedi Knight Cal Kestis, General Luke Skywalker, they have something in their kit that makes them incredibly powerful. Jedi Knight Luke has an AoE stun. Jedi Knight Cal does so much. General Skywalker increases cooldowns, and you know it can also do solid damage, working a variety of teams. Dr. Aphra jacks up everyone's cooldown. So I feel like this is still, it makes sense. These are great standalone characters that we've come to agree in Galaxies. But then you get the things like this, Starkiller Terran Malicos, where obviously when we go to the team building aspect, we know that these teams are very good. You know, this is the territory war variant of Starkiller. So it's really easy to talk about those characters, but it'd be so weird to put Starkiller Terran Malicos in like a Knight Padawan category when we know they're really good. This is where it kind of gets a little bit confusing. This is why team building guides are a little bit more helpful. Same thing kind of like with Third Sister. I mean, even though she's a great plug and play, she's a tank and all that stuff, but we all can agree Wat Tambor is definitely one of the ultimate plug and play characters in Galaxy of Heroes history. Let's take a look at some of the master stuff, and this is what I'm looking for here. characters that maybe aren't as like amazing as the Grandmaster characters, but they still have something in their kit that makes it incredibly plug and play viable, makes them kind of define a particular aspect of the game amazingly well. Characters that don't really go out of style. So let's bring out a prime example here. Moff Gideon. I think Moff Gideon is one of the best plug and play characters out there. He's fast. You can plug him in, for example, a bounty hunter lineup, a freaking Padme lineup potentially. He's got so much plug and play viability in a similar vein like, Grand Admiral Thrawn or General Kenobi. So I think this is a good spot to kind of identify those characters that maybe aren't as like god tier as some of these guys are. Commander Sokatano, Malik, the list goes on as we just went over, but characters that could still hold their own. They're really good on their own, and they get so much better when you plug them in certain lineups, or they just have good all-around kits like Shock T, Moff Gideon that allows you to utilize them in a more plug-and-play fashion. Now, a majority of the characters, if we're going to take this approach of analyzing the game, most characters are going to fall somewhere within this Knight Padawan category, especially in recent years, which is why, again, it's kind of hard to rank characters individualized, because so many characters they're kind of bland on their own. They need to be put in a team or in a grand arena, territory, Omicron situation where all of a sudden their full capabilities lighten up. And here you're going to see a lot of the +1, +2, +3 modifiers when we go through here. But let's give a couple examples of Knight level characters that we have in the game. Cal Kestis. He's a good middle to run character. Maybe not as much plug and play, standalone, team defining viability as some of the Master and Grandmaster characters. But nonetheless, it's a character that still has a solid degree of plug and play viability. It can be used in a variety of situations, but it definitely gets a lot better when you amplify their power. So Cal Kestis is a prime example where by himself, he does really no damage. He's got a nice, targeted cleanse and heal capabilities. But honestly, once you start throwing in unaligned forces teams like Rey, Sir Junda, then all of a sudden the picture becomes much more abundantly clear. This is going to be one of those powerful characters. It's like just like the Bastila Shan characters. On their own, they're okay. Bastila Shan Fallen's got some fear, ability blocks. Bastila Shan, she's going to throw out some buffs, cleanse characters. So still a degree of viability, right? Maybe not as powerful as things like maybe Shock T, Moff Gideon, something of that sort. But I think this makes sense where it's a solid Knight level character that we have here. Some other more recent examples that we've had since, I suppose, 2022. Things like, for example, Son of Staros. It's been a while since we had that. Tusken Chieftain. Maybe they're not as like meta-defining as some other things out there, but once you start putting them in the right teams, their true power really starts to blossom at the end of the day. Hopefully, again, that makes sense where we are. One thing to note, R2-D2, big boost in power, was never even a 2+ character back in October 2022. So R2-D2 seeing a nice boost in viability thanks to Galactic Legend Leia. So technically, he could be like a Grandmaster level character if he's paired up with Galactic Legend Leia. Again, kind of important why I put these indicators, because there's so much nuance to the game. So when you have a character, they get a lot better in specific lineups out there. Now, the biggest category, we did a complete rehaul of the previous graphic that we had. A lot of the characters are going to land in the Padawan category, because these are the characters, I feel like most characters that come to the game, they end up here where by themselves, they're not really doing anything too crazy. But once you start throwing them in a lineup and then you throw an Omicron on them, then they really explode in viability. So these aren't characters that might have that high degree of plug and play viability, but still a decent level where they get so much better. As a Trip, for example, amazing of Dr. Rafa, but without BT and Dr. Rafa, I wouldn't expect too much out of them. Same thing like B1 Battledroid. B1 Battledroid by their own, they're not really doing all that much. But once you slap them in a separate lineup, then it becomes a lot more evident that they're going to be doing something actually beneficial for the team. But not every single character will get better. For example, I really don't think Director Krennic has a nice spot in the game, so I didn't even give him a +1 or a +2 or anything of that matter. But when we keep going down more, then we start seeing a couple of things that makes things, a little bit more interesting, like Qui-Gon Jinn. Qui-Gon Jinn by himself, not great. He's got to buff the spell. He can call on his very basic level things that you could use him. But once you start talking about those Jedi lineups, especially his own Omicron in Grand Arena, he becomes a Super Saiyan at that point. So again, nuance is important, and that's why, again, I kind of refer to the team ranking, because it makes a little bit more sense to understand how these teams and characters kind of really mend together at the end of the day. You're going to see a lot of the Jabba the Hutt requirements. Skifgar, Lando, Bausch, Leia, they're not really great on their own. They're okay scoundrels, bounty hunters. But once you start getting Jabba, that's when you start seeing, +3 viability. slapped on these particular guys. So hopefully, again, this makes sense. We kind of define the slight differences between all these different categories. I'd say the Padawan category, as we briefly mentioned, it's more for those characters that aren't great on their own. They don't really have a lot of all-around plug-and-play vibe. They're not really defining some mega team, but they get so much better once they start getting into those teams. So these are where I think of most characters that come to the game. They usually land in here or maybe not, and then they get better from there. And then, of course, we have the Youngling category. Not much to talk about here. A lot of these characters are either just straight out useless, or some of them could be mildly useful. You know, like, for example, the Jawas by themselves, they're not great, but maybe if you throw some Jawas together, all right, we could throw a little +1 at them. Same thing with Clone Wars Chewbacca. You know, not really great on their own, but the second you throw it in like a Wookiee lineup, or maybe throw it in like a Padme lineup, you can get a little bit of viability out of these characters. So these are the characters at the end of the day. Don't really get a ton of love, but don't sleep on them. Things like Pow by themselves, it's not really great, but all of a sudden you get like Mon Mothma, something of that matter. Then we're in a +3 situation where it gets a lot better for them to be utilized here. Same thing like Rose Tico, a character that really wasn't getting any love. Once we got the Omicrons and Zori started taking over the game in 2023, now we could say Rose Tico. It's a character you don't want to ignore. So don't ignore all these characters, you know, like the Tuskens. They're pretty great once they're in a Tusken lineup by themselves. Nothing really too special happening. So this is kind of where we're sitting at right now. And as I said, I'm going to pass the ball over to you guys if this is something you would like to continue to see moving forward. Man, I miss the days of Galaxy Heroes. I feel like once we started getting to like 2018, 19, that's when we started to see individual character viability isn't really the main focus of the game. Once we started going to 2020, 21, 22, we started getting characters designed for specific game modes, or they're really kind of hard-coded for specific lineups. Again, it's a way for the developers to kind of control power creep. Not every character that comes out anymore is just amazing everywhere like they were in the past. We're kind of getting into more specified parts of the game. So again, I'm letting you guys decide. I am here as a loyal servant to you all to help you navigate through Galaxy Heroes. I think it's fun to kind of just say, overall, this character's kind of like that. But I just want to emphasize one more time, especially if you're newer to the game, make sure you check out the teams rank. These are all the major teams in Galaxy Heroes, from the Grand Arena to the Territory War aspect. Pretty much almost any big team you could think of in the 5v5 sense, you're going to find here, and this is where it's going to be a lot more important, and it's going to maybe clarify something. So if you're wondering, for example, why the heck does Gar Saxon have a +3, you want to check out the team building side where you can see, Maul is pretty good. Same thing like Imperial Super Commando, not great on their own, but it's got a +3 because of recent reworks that we had in 2023. So I'm going to wrap it up right there. Ladies and gentlemen, Gungans and Droids, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I think it's a right way of starting out 2024, and also kind of updating you why we haven't done a character ranking in so many years. 2022, it's been a year and a couple months change, but who knows? Maybe we'll change that. Going to 2024, we can keep updating them as new characters come along. You guys let me know. I love you guys. Let's start this year off strong. Leave a like, the comment down below, the subscribe, all the things YouTube wants us to do. And more importantly, until we meet again, it's great to be in the Empire today.